Gloves Off, Tough Talk Sports Podcast with Christopher R. and Danny, talking tough on sports, martial arts, and anything in between. Danny, World Martial Arts Hall of Famer, NFL expert, and New York Football Giants fanatic. Christopher R., businessman, promoter, retired flag football athlete, and boxing aficionado. Sit down and throw down. Gloves Off, Tough Talk with Christopher R. and Danny. Gloves Off, Tough Talk Sports Podcast, presented by the See You at 6 Network.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us at Gloves Off from the See You at 6 Network. We're here today talking to Danielle Orsino and Jacob Rivara. They have some interesting stuff to talk about with their martial arts, and I'm going to ask Danielle first. What brings you both into the martial arts world? Tell me how you got started.
I've been in martial arts for a long time, for a while now. And my friend Jacob, we work together. And as we were talking, he said that he really wanted to start kickboxing with me. He had seen that I'd been kickboxing with clients for a while, and he said that he wanted to get involved. So we decided that he would put the gloves on and start kicking a little bit. But the interesting thing about Jacob is in the Young Artist program, and he is an opera singer. And how someone gets started in opera, you need to tell that story because I can't do it justice.
I always loved singing for a very long time. I actually started singing. I went to a summer camp in Long Island called U-Stand, and I started off as a choral collegiate singer. And we would go and we would perform every week, and it was such an enjoyable experience, and that was my very first exposure to classical music. And that year when I was leaving, I decided to audition for LaGuardia High School for the performing arts, and I got in, and from that point forward, my love for classical music continued to develop. And once I got into my senior year, I really decided to take it seriously. And I thought, I'm going to audition for a good amount of conservatories, and I ended up going to SUNY Purchase, where I am right now, where I did my undergrad for my BA and my master's right now for my MA, and that is how essentially I got into the opera field.
Well, that's impressive, but I have to stop you. I don't understand the whole getting in that ring and fighting part of it, but maybe you can explain why this has anything to do with getting in the ring.
Well, yeah, absolutely. So like Danielle was saying, we started off kickboxing together, and I got really inspired with the movements of kickboxing and how that started. And then the thought in my mind started to occur, wait, these movements are very similar to the Asian theme style opera, such as Madame Butterfly and Turandot.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And they have a good semblance of Asian culture behind them. Like, they do these kind of martial arts type moves. And I showed her the video, and she was recognizing some of the movements. Yeah. So that's how we ended up getting into first from kickboxing, working on fan technique form.
Yes.
And that is how the rest of it becomes history at that point.
As I started showing, he picked up very quickly.
Okay.
And then his body control from the dance background, from the stage combat that they've taught him, was amazing. So it was very easy to teach him. Yeah. And then the breath control really took me back because he could very easily speak while we were doing the moves, which is something that a lot of people can't do. I mean, when you think of Britney Spears, Janet Jackson, anybody who does crazy choreography, a lot of times they have to have a soundtrack behind them, a voice track.
Is that right?
Because they can't sing it. He can sing, dance, speak. You can't get him to shut up half the times when he's doing his moves.
You're just not a dancer running around. You actually sing.
He can keep talking as he's doing these moves.
Okay.
As he does it. I mean, he'll be standing on one leg and he just keeps looking at me going, yeah, so anyway, can I just hold this pose and what do you need me to do? And he keeps talking and I'm like, I can't talk when I'm doing this stuff. How are you still talking? But his breath control is all there. I mean, opera singers are a different animal, a different athlete. They're an athlete. Make no mistake, they are athletes. They're just a different type of athlete.
Yeah.
It's still I consider them endurance athletes, and muscle athletes, it's just different muscles.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
It's not muscles that we think of as lifting a weight in a power lifter.
Yeah.
I mean, Jacob can explain it better, but when I saw him, I looked at it as he is an endurance athlete.
Endurance, yeah.
With a bit of a sprinter involved.
Yeah.
I guess that's the best way to describe it.
Basically, absolutely. So, as an opera singer, what Danielle said is absolutely correct. We develop over the years a certain endurance, because when we have, it's not the same as a Broadway show singer where they can go and they can do a show every single night and do 8 nights a week. And that's not to say they're not athletes as well. They just use their body. They're a different form of an athlete too.
Sure.
They use their bodies in a completely different way, as they were catered and structured to do as from they were young, which is why sometimes kids from the age of like 4 to when they're in their mid-adult years can just be on Broadway and be on Broadway for so long. But in opera, there's a certain maturity level, because as you grow and you mature as a person, your voice grows. The instrument grows every single day. The same way you produce a certain sound one day, you're not going to produce it the next way. And the endurance, like Danielle was saying, is so important, because the breath control and the breath support, we use a lot of low breathing within that type of, within singing in general. And the control that it takes to sustain a breath using your lower diaphragm, using those lower abdominal muscles, expanding those out, it is so important, not only in singing, but in doing wushu martial arts
when
as
you're
well.
standing on one leg.
Right, exactly.
So it all comes down to discipline.
Exactly. Discipline is such a big key factor into this, because, as a singer, especially within the classical art form, discipline is the #1 key thing you must have to practice, especially in opera, with all the many languages that you sing in, to learn your languages, to learn your IPA, whatever it may be that you're doing. Discipline is the #1 thing. And what made me catch on to this so quickly was the discipline that I have in opera. I could apply it immediately to wushu martial arts.
Danielle and I have had conversation about sports specific, which we're going to do another show on, another podcast about sports specific, what you're talking about with football players and hockey players and discipline. So I think it's really interesting. Has it helped you immensely for what you're doing?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Definitely, specifically in the field of opera, it's very 98% similar to ballet, because of the amount of discipline that you have to have. And the discipline in martial arts is very similar. Just the amount of focus and concentration it takes to do a certain movement with your hand or a certain movement with your body. It really, every movement means something. Just like in opera, where we have to sing in many different languages, every word that is translated means something to every note and every pitch.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You don't actually speak all these languages.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does. He's translated for me.
Wow.
Yes, he does. He speaks many languages, the body control, all of it. It's funny that you mentioned that, because I've seen him do it when we work. I've seen him. I can attest to that. But when he's in the ring and when I'm teaching him a form, it's amazing. It all clicks. But the breath, the body control, the discipline and the focus, he's been one of the easiest people I've had to teach. And I don't give my medal form, my eagle claw, I don't give to a lot of people.
Well, I was going to jump back to you, because I want to understand something. What makes you understand that part? How did you know how to train that to him?
It goes back to language. It translates very easily. But part of it was also, we did look at some videos, and some of the opera moves in the choreography I recognized from Shaolin Kung Fu.
Interesting.
And from Wushu. They were the same. Slap fist, wheeling arm, slap the floor. They were the same. They were actually taking it from traditional Kung Fu and traditional Wushu. So right there, I recognized it. I had gone to SUNY Purchase and seen the Shaolin monks when they were touring. They actually performed at Purchase a couple of years ago. So I did see that, and when we were looking at it, it was funny, because when we watched it on his phone, I said, I know that move. I know that move. And I had studied the fan.
Wow, that's
so
interesting.
A lot of it was very similar. And when we were discussing it, he had taken stage combat. I had done stunt work. So a lot of it was very, very similar, but I thought it would make him stand out also, because if he's going to audition for these things, I thought it would be interesting that if in his reel he had a wushu form. Because if you're going to audition for Madame Butterfly or any of these more Asian-inspired operas, my personal opinion would be that if I'm looking at somebody and it's coming down to two tenors, and his voice is absolutely amazing, but if it's coming down to two amazing people, if he can show that he has a clear understanding of traditional wushu, from a sports perspective, that he has the endurance, because these moves are not easy. As he can show you, this leg strength, the breath control, all of it, to do that singing on top of it, if he can demonstrate that in the reel, that could be the thing that tips him over the edge.
I would like to see that on camera for our audience, our video viewers, to see what you do. What would you go back up a little bit? Explain wushu.
Wushu came from Kung Fu, Shaolin Kung Fu. It's the martial arts. It's what most of us know when you watch a Jackie Chan movie, Jet Li.
I always thought it was all Kung Fu.
But it's Kung Fu. You know,
there was a guy, David Carradine, wasn't it? Kung Fu.
Let's get something straight about David Carradine for a second. Let's all just back up,
Now I'm dating myself, of course.
Bruce Lee originally wrote that and had that part.
But I'm not that old.
You know, let's just for a second. Bruce Lee, okay? You know, we all know Kung Fu, okay? Shaolin Kung Fu started it all, yes. Wushu has become the sport of China. Originally, it was all together, but since then, it has become more of a sport. Beijing Olympics, they've been trying to get in the Olympics for the longest time. It was considered more of an expedition sport. It was something that we all kind of watched and thought, oh, it's pretty. You cover a very large ring. You do a little more gymnastics. It's a little more pretty to watch.
Yeah.
But there is fighting involved. There is fighting involved. No, it's not the Karate Kid. It's not. But if you watch the newer Karate Kid, it's different. The original Karate Kid. Let's go back to the original Karate Kid.
Okay.
Your Ralph Macchio, your, Danielle son. That Karate Kid was Okinawan style. So that's your hard style. That's a little different Japanese. Your Wushu, your Chinese style. Soft style, a little prettier. With it, the moves are a little more fluid, as Jacob will show you.
Okay.
It's different style. You have your hard, your soft. Any of your martial arts, it depends on the region it's from. Okay. It will also play to certain strengths. Hard style, it's a little more rigid. Your stances are a little longer. They're a little more settled.
Okay.
Your Taekwondo, that's from Korea.
Korea, and then there was a Russian
we can get into the Krav. We can get into Krav Maga, Israeli Army kind of stuff. We can get into. There's all different things. I mean, it's even.
That sounds like it's going to be another segment.
That's a whole other. We can get into all the different styles.
I just want to stop you a second. The reason I went, at my age, the reason I went to Kung Fu Karate Kid was because a lot of our generation understood that, and then all of a sudden you heard about Muay Thai, Wushu, and Krav Maga. To me, I just started hearing about. So that's why I wanted to understand how this really fell into place. I want you to just explain, have you ever thought of using it for self-defense or anything? Has it ever crossed your mind that you would need it in a street fight or anything? Or was it just specifically for your dancing?
At the time, it was just specifically for getting to want to learn the movements of these specific styles, to present something different for opera companies if I were to audition for them. Sure. But it definitely helps to know a little bit of wushu martial arts. Yeah, and it, you know what? It does give you a nice asserted confidence.
I was leading right to that. Because it's seriously, and I don't mean to cut you off because I talk too much, but I started out with a glove. I still have my big bag. I still have my boxing gloves from as I was a kid. And it was always, defense, fight. What I see today, I don't have the confidence because I don't do what you do as far as have what Danielle teaches. And I absolutely would like to learn that, and we'll get more into later on the Krav Magas and self-defense for women and people. But guys like us, I'm not a big guy, I would feel much more confident. And I'm a very confident guy. And the problem with that, I've found out, is when I'm walking through the city street and I'm dressed up, I'm paying attention to my surroundings because I'm a Yonkers boy, but growing up. But I'm realizing watching the news, I'm not confident or smart enough to know I should be not going down those certain streets. So that's why I'm leading you into, it's gotta be a confidence builder, even with your dancing.
Right, absolutely. I mean, the great thing about it is there's a certain stature that you kind of hold yourself up to. You can, it's almost like you breathe a little easier, you move a little better. It actually, there's a portion of it that's quite interesting that awakens a part of your brain almost. I find it very interesting where it kind of is the best way to completely clear anything out of your mind, and it kind of entails a certain focus. Sure. And you can kind of just hear something completely silent, and then you'll hear something and it kind of has a certain reaction, and you can just look back and kind of almost feel if someone's like maybe behind you or around you. It opens up your senses to a way that I've never had like a senses awakening before. So that's something that I
Wow, just hearing you say that, even at my age, I could use that.
Well, it was funny because when we'd be just kickboxing,
right,
like before
right.
we were doing it, he would always at the end of it go, I just feel empowered. I just feel better. You know, regardless of the day,
sure.
regardless of the
Right.
day he had, it was always like, because I could tell by the way he walked over to me at work what kind of day he was having, the way he carried himself.
Yeah.
I could just tell what was weighing on him, and he would just put his hands out and go, just put the gloves on, let's go. And I'd put the gloves on, and we would start, and I could see all of a sudden the shoulders pulled back a little bit, the head came up a little more, and by the end of the workout, it was just different. He was just, and he'd say, I just needed that, and I'd get a text maybe the end of the day that would just say, I feel empowered, I just feel better.
It's better than going for a massage.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was
honestly.
just better. It
Yeah.
was just, everything was shed.
Yeah.
And he was like, I just feel better about all of it today. And
Right.
now I can just go, I can go to school and I can sing because everything that went on at work is left at work now.
Before we wrap, because we are getting close on time, I'd like to see some moves. My wife has been doing it for a couple of years now, Muay Thai, boxing, and Krav Maga, and I've noticed a night and day difference in her. And to be honest, I would never mess with her because I see some of the moves, but more importantly, the way I wanted to touch on it. She has to race out of the house and go to those classes to clear her head, after being in the office, running things. So I understand perfectly. And me, as a person that's all over the place, constantly on the run, I do eat well, I do watch my health, but it's not enough.
Oh yeah.
I need the mental. And I got to
Absolutely.
start focusing on that, which was one of the reasons I brought our cameraman Mike Meyerson in today, and my wife Paula is our assistant to help us keep this going, was because this is very important for people to know. It's not all about getting to the gym and just jumping on that treadmill,
Correct.
jumping, taking those spin classes, which I've been doing since 1996. This is 2019. It's so important because the mental is really what carries the body and makes you feel good. So I thank you for coming on today, Jacob. It was very instructional for people to see different things they could be doing.
Well, thank you so much.
And I think they're going to love to see what you do in that ring.
All right, awesome.
Great.